Kerala Higher Education Council, Director, NSS Academy of Civil Services, for the inaugural address.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. John, Mr. Rajan, Varughese, other participants in this webinar. I just finished one in the morning, so I'm fresh with all kinds of ideas we discussed under the auspices of FICCI. We had a large number of participants. I'll just say a few words as an inauguration or introduction, and after that maybe we'll have discussion, so I'll not go into great detail. I'll begin by saying that I'm an unabashed and unreserved supporter of the new policy. I have no reservations about them. I may have hesitations about practicality of a few ideas, but I fully endorse and support the new policy without any reservations. And this is a personal reason, because what I failed to achieve, I tried to achieve in 5 years in Kerala higher education, find their way into the report, into this policy, which is very satisfying, not because I campaigned for it or anything, but the way to a reformed education system is Kerala is only one. And if you go any other way, it is not going to succeed. And there was a lot of difficulty in trying to convince people that this is the only way, and therefore we failed to implement most of the recommendations that we need. We approached it in 2011 to solve 6 issues which we thought were very important. Number 1 was infrastructure. Number 2 was training of teachers. Number 3 was use of technology for teaching. Number 4 was autonomy. Number 5 was research. And number 6 was internationalization. So we thought these were the 6 areas in which we must take immediate action. So we submitted something like 16 or 17 reports, each one explaining what steps we should take. Out of this, the only proposal which got accepted by the government was the establishment of 20 autonomous colleges in Kerala. Everything else was either shelved or rejected or thrown into the waste paper basket. I don't know what happened. But I find that those ideas have come. They have been resurrected in this report. I'm by no less a person than a rocket scientist. Where educationists have failed, I think the government decided to ask a rocket scientist, Dr. Kasturi Rangan, to deal with these issues. And what he has done is basically identifying the difficulties that, like we did, and then bring in the best practices in the world as a kind of model and adapted it for the circumstances in India. There was no other way to approach this. But the thrust of all these, there are so many recommendations, so many proposals, right from from age 3 to PhD. And all of them may not be practical, all of them may not be acceptable. But the general thrust of this policy is to open up education, to make it a liberal education, which has been hamstrung by so many regulations and so many constraints and so many regulatory bodies and so on for so many years. 34 years we have spent on that whole policy. And while the world has moved on, in the last 10 years, there has been more changes in education than the last 100 years. That is the pace at which education has moved. But unfortunately, we are still in a 19th century mindset. We are still in a syllabus, and we are hoping to train our young people for the 21st century. So we have to do a lot of catching up. We have to come to the 21st century. We talk about the demographic dividend that India will get when India's population will be the largest young population in the world. Which means that 21st century, the intellectual work of the world is to be done by Indians. But that responsibility can be taken on by us only if we train our people to do the jobs of the 21st century. All the jobs that we are training them for may be good for them, medicine, engineering, etc. But other than that, what we are teaching them are things which are already outdated. And therefore, a very bold move was necessary to change the whole structure and to look at all possible ways to liberate education, make it choice-based. Mr. John talked about Rajan Varughese's contribution to that. I am familiar with that. But what kind of choice did we give them? Hardly any. We introduced subjects for which we had no teachers. Informatics was introduced and given to English literature teachers. They had not heard of informatics. So such pathetic situation arose in our country. And then in the name of choice-based education, we gave no choice. So what this education policy does is to take education out of these confines of these prison of the last 34 years and infuse a certain amount of life in it and try to devise ways in which we can catch up with the world. I know we are not yet ready for it. Many people are not ready. Kerala least ready. And we probably have already told the government that none of us can be done by us, etc. Anyway, I don't know. But right from the beginning, when these consultations started in 2015, when I was still in the Higher Education Council, I had supported a liberal policy. And I coordinated all the consultations and I made a presentation to the Minister of HRD at that time, which exactly was the same thrust as this. And so we are only to be happy about the new proposals. I shall not touch about the school education because I'm not very familiar, but I still think it is a very good idea to start from the very beginning. Because these days children go to pre-primary, etc., where they are not getting a systematic education. So that is a major thing they have written. Otherwise, 3 plus 4 plus 3 plus 3, etc. That's all okay. But one element there that they've introduced is skill development at an early age. So in school education, apart from the language, that the vernacular should be taught for the first 5 years. And basically, the introduction of skill development at an early age. There isn't much of a difference. In the university level, this whole idea of a 4-year degree with exit points at every stage is a really remarkable revolutionary step. Because what happens today is young people go into a college without any understanding of what it will be or what use it will be for them. But once you join a course, there is no way of escaping it and you keep on going in the wrong direction. But here we have a splendid opportunity. After 1 year, they can decide, no, this is not good for me. So they can leave it and go and do something else. And what you have learned will remain in your credit bank. So you will have a degree, you will have a certificate after 1 year. You will have a diploma after 2 years. You will have a degree after 3 years. And readiness to go for PhD after 4 years. In many countries, students take a break for 1 year or half a year and go for a travel or go and do some work in some place else in the world. Those flexibilities are not available to us. and that has been introduced. We were very keen that we must expand the registration of students, how much of GER we should have. This government, this policy directly talks about 50% by 2030, which is a laudable objective. But at the same time, when you say 50%, it is not that everybody is put into the college. That's not the idea. And that is where it makes a difference. That is, you are able to divert them, those who are interested in skills and interested in other kinds of jobs, move out of the system so that those who are eligible and ready to take an academic study is given the opportunity to do so. Then, private enterprise. Of course, the government has said that 6% of the GDP will be used for education. That is very low, although it is higher than what it is today. But we cannot have these reforms unless there is private investment. And Kerala is not new to private investment. What are we talking about? A lot of private investment has been made. And the private-public partnership is worked most ideally in Kerala. But the moment we say private, immediately they'll say, oh, this is commoditization. This is commercialization. This is knowledge economy. All kinds of criticisms are made on an issue on which we have tremendous experience. In fact, other people should be copying from us. But we do not allow a single private university to come. Now I know there are some private universities are being allowed to function this way and that way. They are thinking in terms of academic city and education zones that we had proposed. So there is no logic. Is it private university allowed or not allowed? I don't know. Is autonomy allowed or not allowed? I don't know. Because 3 engineering colleges have been given autonomy out of the blue by a government which opposes autonomy. So let us have a clear view of these things. Private enterprise is essential to develop education. And all the new generation universities which have come up in Delhi and elsewhere, without doubt, they are superior to all our conventional universities. In Kerala, if anyone can afford to send his son outside, he will not keep him here. Depends on his income. If he has limited income, he will send the child to Bangalore. If he has more money, he'll send him to Delhi. If it is even more money, he'll send him to New York or to London or to Germany. And those who remain here are those who cannot either afford it or do not understand the importance of investment in education. Why can't we have those institutions here? What are we afraid of? But we are afraid. And therefore, one of the major things that this education policy does is to encourage private investment and also encourage foreign universities to open campuses in India. I was accused of bringing foreign universities. I never suggested that foreign universities should come here. I simply said we should cooperate with foreign universities. Because bringing universities to India is not my job. It is the job of the Parliament of India. And there is a bill there, which has not been approved yet. But this time the government has said that foreign universities will be allowed to open campuses in India. But they have made a basic mistake because they are saying that only the first best 100 universities will be allowed to come. We are being very optimistic and very ambitious. Which are these 100 universities who are going to come here? The best in the world, who may not have even heard about India. So we have to slow down and allow at least 1,000 best universities in the world to come here. Otherwise, it will not work. And also in the bill, it says that nobody can take any profits out of here. That's not a problem. I'm sure these universities will not come for profits. They will come for the experience of India. India is a vast laboratory of all good and bad things in the world. And any university interested in developing their intellectual capacity will want to come to India just for the sake of that. And so private investment, foreign universities, a different scale of educational system, use of technology, online education. So everything that is desirable in the system has been brought in. And therefore, it's an ideal picture that we have. I'll go into details if anybody is interested later. And so the thrust is exactly the same as we tried here. Again, collaboration between education institutions and industries. In fact, that chapter quotes from us. Our report has been quoted. They're not acknowledged it, but it's the same language they have used. So it is a dream come true as far as I'm concerned. But coming to practicalities, that's the only other point I want to make, is that unless there is some basic consensus among political parties, we will not be able to implement this. I've been saying from day one that ideological approach to education will not take us anywhere. What we need to do is a pragmatic, practical approach. There are 4 things on which there is no consensus in India. First, what is the purpose of education? You call up all the vice-chancellors and let's have a debate. They will not agree on it. Somebody will quote Vivekananda, somebody will quote Mahatma Gandhi, somebody will quote Narayana Guru, somebody will quote somebody else, the modern gurus. But there will be no agreement on the objective education. I've gone through this many times, that's what I'm saying. For me, the ideal are the words of Sri Narayana Guru. He is the only one who emphasized all the 3 aspects of mankind. That is the head, the heart, and the hand. Intellectual capacity to be developed, sympathy, empathy, and understanding to be developed, and the ability to use your hand has to be developed. Why can't we have a compromise like that, an objective of education? No, it's not possible. The second is language. This policy has tried to deal with the language. Nothing new, good old 3-language formula. Except that they want education in English, in local language, vernacular, in the first 5 years. In fact, 10 years it was like that. I studied in Malayalam for the first 10 years and then came to college and switched over to English. Now, children go to English medium schools because of it's fashionable. And then they come to the college, there is no emphasis on Malayalam. You can write either in English or Malayalam, so everybody decides to read in Malayalam. So they neither know English, nor do they know Malayalam to write. When we know that 40% of our people will be outside Kerala spending their lives, how can you tie them down to any one language? How are they going to compete in the rest of the country and rest of the world? Civil service examination can be taken in Malayalam. Somebody qualifies and joins the foreign service. Practical. So then we send them to an English institute in Hyderabad and train them for 1 year and send them into the United Nations. How will you perform? What will you do? So this linguistic fundamentalism is not good. We have to arrive at a pragmatic position when you look at the linguistic issue. Of course, there is Tamil Nadu opposing Hindi. We have no opposition to Hindi. You can learn English, Malayalam, and Hindi. What is the problem? We don't have any problem. But that Tamil Nadu will take care of that. We don't have to worry about that. Then the third thing is the role of private sector. Again, highly emotive, highly emotional response to that. They will ruin it. We drafted a private university bill for this government, or last government, in which we are able to put it, thanks to Dr. Sariak Thomas, we are able to put into it all the safeguards necessary for a private university to take care of the needs of the development, social, economic development of the state. All the reservation possibilities, all the scholarship possibilities, not to make it an elitist organization. And they were ready to come, private universities. We have 10 applications were made by people who had the land, who had the money, who had to invest in private universities. But then what happened? Nothing. So let these ideologues, I have no political connection, let all these politicians sit together and decide among themselves if they have any sense of what is good for the country. And last is internationalization. How much internationalization are we willing to have? I tried to bring one group of Americans for one semester in Kerala University. I cannot imagine the problems it created. It was an absolute mess with all the prejudices, all the wrong notions of life. As I said, 19th century mindset. We finished the course and sent them away. They could not even survive here. That is the bottom of international cooperation in education. They were very happy here. They wanted to eat Indian food. Well, we tried to give them what we think it is Western food, which we do not know how to make. But we have to close it down simply because we are not culturally ready. I have been all over the world. Malayalis are the best in adapting themselves to any culture. But not here. Here we want to be purist. When you go abroad, you need not be purist. You can do whatever you want. So, internationalization is also, we have to decide, are we going to allow universities to come? Or are they going to do karavo outside? So, unless there is agreement on these four elements, we cannot implement this policy. Of course, government has given it a long time, 10 years we will take. Even 20 years will not work because if this is the mentality that we have. When are we going to change this? The adaptability, the need for modernization, the need for liberalization, the need for teaching people what they want to learn, as the Prime Minister said, and telling them what is available in the world, and giving them the opportunity to experiment and change. Make research purposeful. There was some UGC instruction that suggestions will be made about research. Oh, there was a huge hue and cry. Government is going to control research. Did they say that you can only research on these subjects? They didn't say that. They said we'll suggest some of these topics which are of relevance to us. Why should you research on Shakespeare's sonnets? What is of relevance to us? That kind of questions. But it was completely abandoned. And our research is gathering of information. How many research papers have been turned into patents or industrial products? Nothing. So, in all this, unless we have a liberal approach, unless we are politically mature,